Happy Small Business Saturday to you, Leroy.
What's up?
Did you go and support your local business?
I didn't leave the house.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Did you buy anything for Black Friday?
Didn't leave the house.
Okay. Did you buy anything for Black Friday, though? You could buy something online.
I will neither confirm nor deny that I bought anything for
Okay.
Black Friday.
Fantastic.
Uh,
What's going on, man?
Trying to watch this stupid game
Why would you do that to yourself?
because I want to see Clemson beat the goddamn dog snot off of these chickens.
I could see Clemson winning. I don't know if they're going to beat the dog snot off of them. That
I
the
want them
team
to.
is
They
not
should.
the team is not the team of years ago.
True. However, these Gamecocks are terrible. And we should not be barely beating them 16-7 in the third. I am so upset right now. And this is why I didn't watch the game. So I had to turn the game off. So I was watching it before the stream.
Uh-huh.
Me and Owen were watching it, and I started cursing again. And my baby was sitting here, and he didn't want to watch the game either. And I was like, I understand, buddy. And so I turned that shit off because I was getting pissed. So
Getting pissed. Fantastic.
and
IMAX, what's
that's
going
why I
on?
stopped
Yes,
watching
we are
football.
live.
I stopped
Okay.
watching football because I kept cursing and I kept getting mad. And I was like, I need to stop. I need to stop. IMAX, let go Gamecocks. How do you kick people off the chat? I don't give a shit if there's 4 people in there. You about to go.
Hey, we don't kick people off with our little okay. Once we get 50 people,
Okay.
we'll kick people off.
You keep thinking that. I'm about to
We,
kick IMAX
we
out right
don't
now.
kick nobody off at 4 people. We take everybody.
You come in here with that Gamecock nonsense. Let me get them chickens out of here.
Oh man. What are we talking about, man? This was your topic. You feel kind of heated about this. There we go.
This Jezebel.
The Gamecocks are strong in this chat. I love it.
They need to be they ain't strong on the field. That's all I'm gonna say.
What are we talking about?
No, we're talking about Marvel and what
Mhm.
the hell is wrong with Marvel. And I think
Now,
it's very interesting. Hold on. I think
Okay.
I think it's very interesting that we're having this conversation because I think it's a conversation we need to have. The last Marvel property has been released for 2023. Marvel's just came out. It's been in
the
the
last
movie
Marvel
theaters
movie.
for 2 weeks. Marvel property. Nothing else is coming out this year.
We're getting What If.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I
But that's
apologize.
interesting that you forgot about that. Maybe that's something we could talk about too.
Well, we can get to that. I guess live action. Sorry, I
Okay.
apologize. Live action thing that's coming out this year.
Okay.
We can get to that too. And right now, Marvel. I wanted to have this conversation when the article came out. It was an article by Tatiana Siegel from Variety. It came out a week before Marvel's drop. It was called Crisis at Marvel. Jonathan Majors' backup plans, the Marvel reshoots, reviving original Avengers, and more issues revealed. I can put this article in the chat. And I wanted to delve into why this has become a thing and what, and why I don't like Dabo either, IMAX. I'm gonna be honest with you. I like Tyler from Upstate when he came on and was holding Dabo's feet to the fire. Tyler was the reason why they actually woke up and beat Notre Dame because I don't believe without that call they would have actually showed up. Anyway, check the score real quick.
Yo, this is
Still
gonna be an
16.
interesting one. Let me just
Oh,
say
I
that.
didn't even. And here's the thing: this is stone sober. I'm just this angry. I ain't even drinking nothing because I know if I start drinking, we will get shut down. But I think it's very interesting that everybody's talking about are the chinks in the armor being shown. IMAX, calm down. Y'all can't. Don't get me started on Miami. Don't get me started on Miami. All you had to do was take a knee, and your championship chances would be intact. Cristobal is not the future. I'm telling y'all right now. Mark my words. Y'all go fire Cristobal for y'all win a championship. Woo! Let me get that out of the way. Anyway, as I was saying, everybody's coming from Marvel and Disney because when you on top, everybody comes for you. When you're the hunted, right now Marvel's the hunted. They're the biggest game in town.
Mhm.
And they've supplanted a lot of other franchises. actors, directors taking the front and center role of being the darlings, the cool people now. And that has rubbed people the wrong way for various reasons. And we can get into that. But I think that's one problem that Marvel is facing. There are others that we can get into. You've alluded to a bunch of them leading up to this, and something that you have always said: what is the end goal? What is the end game of this phase, of these two phases?
We had in phase one, phase two, phase three, even with Avengers, was that like 5 movies in when the franchise first started, we had
Mhm.
Thanos. We knew we were getting Thanos. Even if people didn't know what a Thanos was, you saw Thanos, you knew that was coming for 3 phases. Phase 4, 5, and I guess 4 and 5, we think Kang is supposed to be the end goal. Maybe it's supposed to be multiverse stuff. I don't know.
Well, Kang is multiverse. Think of it that way. Kang is multiverse because Kang can hop time. So, and slides dimensions. But continue.
Question: do you have us on in the background somewhere that you're watching it?
No. Mm-mm.
I
Why?
feel like I'm hearing myself as an echo.
I do not.
Okay, I don't know. Whatever. Um, I think the issue, or one issue, is just it kind of seems like they're not as focused. And granted, it's comic books, so things can get out of whack and things can happen. But it does seem like there's no clear delineation of what this is, because I feel like we've gotten several different explanations for what the multiverse is, and maybe that's on purpose because it's the multiverse. But I feel like Doctor Strange explained it one way, and then I feel like Spider-Man kind of explained it another way, and then Loki explained it another way.
So tell me what you think the multiverse is. In other words, you
I think
said the
there's
explanations.
if
So
this was a
what
real
to
life
you?
situation, there's Michael A. Hi, I'm Michael A. In another multiverse, there's a Michael B. And another multiverse, there's a Michael C. But what I don't feel like they've done a good enough job of tying them all together. Even though they've talked about them, I don't feel like they've hit it home hard enough what this stuff is. And it kind of just feels like when they do it, they don't hit on it hard enough. Like IMAX, I'm so far behind on the MCU. I feel you, man. Prime example for me is Doctor Strange. We always talk when Doctor Strange came out, when it first came out, people were like, oh, this is going to be cool because they're going to go to so many different multiverses. Maybe they went to 4 or 5 for like a few seconds.
Doctor Strange, you talking the first one or the sequel?
The sequel, sorry. Multiverse of
Okay.
Madness. The Multiverse of Madness. Like when that trailer came out, I feel like the talk was, oh man, we're going to go through so many different universes and see all these different iterations of stuff. And it was cool when we got to whatever universe that was, where we got what they call the Illuminati in that.
Their version of the Illuminati.
Their version of the
I don't
Illuminati.
think I don't think they were ever called that.
Okay. It was cool to see. It was cool to see. Spoilers for Multiverse of Madness here. 2, 3. Okay, we got it. It was cool to see Professor X. It was cool to see Reed Richards. It was cool to see Captain Britain. Was she called Captain Britain or just Captain?
Captain Carter. He's called
Captain Carter. Captain Carter. It was cool to see another Captain Marvel. But I don't feel like we've hit that home enough if that's where we're going, because we only see it in a few movies. But I feel like the bigger thing they're doing, which is doing, and I won't call it stunt casting, but casting maybe it's stunt casting. I don't know, casting big name actors in these roles that hopefully they're going to come back in. I don't know. Hey, I
told you that.
I like Charlize Theron.
I think
that's awesome. Is she going to come back? I don't know. Here's Harry Styles. Okay.
And I warned you about all of that. I warned you because when Multiverse of Madness came out, go back and watch our old video about the review of Multiverse of Madness. When I said that's Clea, I was like, oh, and this goes back to my point of Marvel's now cool. So now, remember when they started this universe, and here's the thing that I think a lot of people are not paying attention to and not understanding. When they started the MCU, they started it with low budgets, unknown actors, or people who were on the come up. Robert Downey Jr., was not an unknown, but he was very hard to build a movie around because of all of his previous transgressions, and so he was cheap. If people remember, and I beat this I beat this with a I beat this point down every single time I bring it up. Robert Downey Jr. was the least bankable star in that movie, in the first Iron Man. Gwyneth Paltrow, um, Terrence uh,
Howard.
Terrence Howard, and the director, Happy. Uh,
Oh man,
um,
no, I can't think of now that if you hadn't said that, I would be able to think of his name.
I see
Favreau.
him. I see him. John Favreau. Robert Downey Jr. was four. Robert Downey Jr. was the fourth bankable star in that.
You're forgetting
And
Obadiah's name.
so, no, I'm not.
You think at that time Robert Downey Jr. was bigger? Interesting.
I would say Jeff Bridges. I would say Jeff Bridges is an actor who is Oscar winning, and I love his work, but bankable as far as movies.
Okay.
Name a movie where he has carried a movie and it is won at the box office. You see what I'm saying? Like when I think of people who are in movies that are bankable, that are A-list stars, that you're like, hey, that movie's going to sell because that person's in it. I'm not saying Jeff Bridges is bad. I'm saying Jeff Bridges is an actor who does things, and you're like, I'm going to go see that, but I don't think
He's not necessarily
I
doing
don't.
blockbuster stuff.
There you go, and
Okay.
that's what I said. So and again, I'm not knocking him. I
But
just
you
want to
will
put that
not
out
knock
there.
the old man.
Oh no, because the Old Man is one of the best shows on television, and
Mhm.
I love. I'm not a big. Thank you, Zaylen Murray. He's not putting butts in seats, and I think Jeff Bridges is great in a lot of movies that he does, but I mean, he's the Big Lebowski. So, but remember that wasn't blowing up movie theaters when it came out. It's a cult classic.
Sure.
So I say all of that to say, you were hiring people. The cost was low. These budgets were low. Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pine. The biggest in Iron Man 2, the biggest two stars were Mickey Rourke and Scarlett Johansson. They weren't even the main characters. So you when you start that way, you are able to build on those people because you have them for X amount of movies. They're not doing anything.
Mhm.
Charlize Theron is doing a bunch of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if she got behind the director's chair in a few years. She's just that good.
Mhm.
So you have people now you're putting in these movies who have other shit to do. So how are you going to keep them going into these movies? But because Marvel's the cool kid in the class, everybody wants to be in Marvel now. So I've been wondering about that for a while. I want to pick up on the point that you said, what is the multiverse? The multiverse, the way I read it and the way it was explained in Infinity War, the best way to explain it is how the Ancient One explained it to the Hulk.
Mhm.
There's one timeline, that sacred timeline that we now know, which was being kept together by He Who Remains. The other timelines are basically Michael goes to USC. Michael goes into television and becomes a producer. That's the sacred timeline. And another timeline, Michael goes to Clemson. And another timeline, Michael goes to Claflin. So in other words, that's the multiverse. The chance or the opportunity not taken, or something happened to you. Um, the problem with the multiverse is a
Question.
little bit of what, yes.
And what you might be about to answer this. Do you think the MCU has done a good job of explaining that since we?
No.
Okay.
No, because I'm about to say the movie that came out the same year that Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness came out and did a better job of explaining what the multiverse was. And you know what the movie is because
Everything
it
everywhere all
swept
at
it.
once. Yeah.
Boom. Did a better job of explaining the multiverse, came in at a lower budget, had more recognizable stars, and was amazing. And that's the problem that the MCU has. The MCU used to do one thing and one thing well. And now people are recognizing that the MCU pulled this off, so we can kind of do these things too and bring this movie to the theaters. And people are receptive to it. Ain't nobody watching a multiverse movie before the MCU showed up like that. We were watching it,
Mhm.
nerds were watching it, but nobody else was paying attention to that kind of stuff. We were. Marvel made it cool to do some of these ideas. And now you're starting to see other people do the same thing Marvel did. So you're getting that at a lower cost, better movie, more recognizable stars are having more fun because it's not a corporate machine. So that goes back to your point. Um, Here's my question for you.
Mhm.
Do you believe, how much do you think, because the article that I put in the chat, I'll highlight Zaylan Maru. Yeah, it's definitely changed. Story was king, but now they need name recognition to get folks to the movies trending in the wrong direction. I think that's part of it. And because I'm gonna ask you this, um, how much do you think the Bob Chapek and Bob Iger fight was a detriment to Marvel and Disney?
So the Variety article there's another article that came out, and I can't remember where that is. That's really good. That talks about not just Marvel, but just the Disney issues between Chapek and Iger. And I think that probably had a big,
The
based
one
on
you
what that.
told me,
Go ahead.
the one you sent me was CNBC. That was a CNBC article you sent me.
Yes, yes, that was a really good
If the,
article.
if, yes, that was a CNBC article you sent me. If I can find it, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
that one was good, and it kind of talked about the idea that, and I can, who was first? Iger was first, right? Yeah, because Iger was the one who
Yes.
kind of made everything happen and really brought stuff together.
And
He was in
Chapek
the
was his.
process. Chapek was going to be his, or was his successor. That was a guy that
Yes.
he picked. There
Hmm.
were other people that were up for the role, but Iger's like, nah, I like this guy. But as
Hmm.
the article states, as soon as Chapek took over, Iger didn't necessarily want to give up power. There was like trust issues between the two. And it seemed like
Because,
the issues that the things that Chapek wanted to do were not making Disney money. And Iger's like, I've been making
well,
money since I got here. What are you doing?
but also the biggest thing that Chapek did, that Iger did wrong, that he did not do, was that he did not know Bob Chapek. He picked Chapek because he made money for the company and he was a company man, yes, but he did not know Bob Chapek. They weren't friends. They didn't have the same goals and they didn't operate the same way. Because in that article, they talked about the one thing. Bob Iger had a shower in his office. He used to live in his office. He had this huge glamorous office. He used to hobnob with Hollywood bigwigs. He enjoyed that type of limelight. Bob Chapek was not that person. And so they never had a consensus on how Marvel and Disney should be run because they didn't agree on matters of business because they didn't know each other.
Mhm.
And so when Chapek was put in charge, the article that you sent me highlighted the ways that Iger then started to resent Chapek, but there was nothing really he could do about it because this is a guy he picked. And
Mhm.
it's too late for you to, like, what you gonna do? And
When we talked
so,
about, I'll let you get right back to you, but when we talked about the issues between Disney and Scarlett Johansson and Black Widow, that article has since
mhm,
showed that, oh, that was under Chapek's reign, more or less. Like a lot of the stuff was like the kind of screwing her over stuff that happened with Chapek, not with Iger. So it's
mhm.
interesting the way Chapek tried to do things, and it seemed like he kind of had the idea of, oh, we've had a little bit of success, so let's run it into the ground. Let's not realize that there is a positive in doing things in increments and not getting people tired out on Marvel. Maybe we
But
didn't need
here,
13 TV shows.
well, here's where I understand that. I will push back just a little bit and say not necessarily blame Chapek, but I will say at the time the world was a different place when Chapek took over. And I think under normal circumstances, maybe Chapek would have learned on the job to turn into what Iger needed. Chapek's problem was he was up against one of the largest business decimators we have ever seen, which was the pandemic.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that Marvel, a lot of people right now are not paying attention that Marvel is going through is a reckoning because for the longest, Marvel was the pinnacle. 30 movies, largest franchise of all time. Everything was going steamroll ahead. We had the Disney Plus was launched. You launched it with Star Wars in mind, these different shows, and there weren't that many of them. Then the pandemic happened. The entire phase 4 lineup got flipped. Movies and shows were shut down. They couldn't complete some of them. On top of that, the parks were shut down. So the only place you were getting revenue, excuse me, the only place you're going to get revenue that Wall Street was recognizing was Disney Plus. Remember, cruise ships were shut down. The theme parks were, and keep in mind, they don't shut them theme parks down for shit.
Yeah.
Mass shooting, death,
Weather.
hurricane.
I mean, it has to be a super strong hurricane, but a lot of times, rain and stuff like strong winds, Disney World in Florida will still stay open. So
There are times that there have been deaths at the park and they have not shut that park down. So
that I don't
that
know about.
there was a child that was killed at the park. I believe it was an alligator got the child or one of the resorts. I can't remember exactly the details. Guess what happened? They kept that shit rolling. Now I could be mistaken, but
Yeah, did it
I could
happen
be
at the park or
misremembering.
did it happen at a resort?
I have to go look back. But the
Research
thing
that
is,
first.
they don't stop that part for nothing. Now, I
Right.
could be incorrect. I could be incorrect. But I say that to say they had to invest in the streaming service because what was also coming down the pipe, you're up against Netflix. HBO Max was up and running, coming slowly but surely. Peacock was about to get rolling. You had all of these different things coming at the same time. And Chapek was up against it. On top of, he was fighting a political fight with Florida about the autonomy of the county that Disney sits in.
Hmm.
So I felt bad for the guy in a certain sense because I felt like he was never really given full control of the company. Because if you remember, the article talked about there were so many people who were loyal to Iger who were undermining Bob Chapek and the decisions that he made. So I think that also had a lot to do with it. And he hired people who did not know television and movies, and that was on him. Remember, he hired I can't remember the guy's name, but the black kid from Stanford that was a wonderkind
Hmm.
and a wonderkind, and everybody was like, "Yeah, he's smart, but he doesn't know how television works." And you and I have both run into those type of people. They're smart as hell, but they have no idea how television works. And then they're put in charge of television.
Sure.
And I think that right now is what Marvel has a problem of. You had a regime change in fight.
I just put
You
in a TNBC
had
article.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Good call. Thank you. You had a regime change in fight. COVID. You had to launch a subscription service, a streaming service, and you're coming off one of the biggest franchise two-parters of all time since, I would say, Empire Strikes Back. I would say critically and commercially, no one left a cliffhanger as big. Maybe the Matrix. Maybe the Matrix Revolutions, the sequel, maybe that one. But I don't see anybody. You're. It's like Phase 4 came on stage after the Beatles just played,
Hmm.
after Queen just shut down, where old boy was doing, like, I mean, really, it was a no-win situation, and I think there are some added forces that are complicating things, but we can get into it. But how much do you think COVID played a part in ruining how Phase 4 and Phase 5 rolled out?
I mean, sure, I would agree with COVID definitely had its effect because we could see it in stuff like WandaVision, who we always talk about. Now that I can't think of her, she plays Darcy, but I can't think of her name. Kat Dennings.
Kat Dennings.
In that last episode, where she just seems like she's filmed away from everybody else, and we know that later came out. Oh, because of COVID stuff, she didn't get to shoot her scenes with everybody else, which kind of complicated her ending in that show. We also had, what was it?
And
WandaVision.
That wasn't even the first one. That wasn't even the first one that was supposed to be released.
Right. WandaVision came out, but it was supposed to be Winter Falcon or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But they had to change all that around. So, I mean, it definitely had an effect. Even still with that, even the complications of your shooting, it does seem like there are points where like these stories are just not hitting as well. Even if it's not on the level of a Thanos, it's still kind of like, yeah, okay, granted, it's not painting a bigger picture, but the story you have here isn't the biggest in the world. Or this story just, it feels like it's kind of loose and not tight. When we reviewed the Phase 4, and I was definitely lower on it than you, but we both agreed like it was okay. It wasn't like 1 and 2 and 3, but it was okay. But even if there's no bigger through line to it, there's some of that stuff was just kind of like, and I wanted to hit a little bit harder. It seemed like a lot of the endings for a lot of that stuff just kind of fell flat for a lot of things.
It seemed like, and I liken it to right now what is going on in Star Wars with Ahsoka. For those people who like the MCU and the movies came out a couple of times a year, you could pick and choose which one you wanted to watch, and you weren't missing a bigger picture. With all of the movies, with all of the shows, I like it, but I get for those people who do not read these comics every Wednesday or every year. It got to the point where you had to watch everything to figure out what was happening in this next chapter event. And the biggest problem with that is if you're going to do that, then you better make sure that shit comes out on time. Mm-hmm. Because when you swap things like Marvels and Secret Invasion.
Well, no, Marvels and Quantumania.
No, Marvels and Secret Invasion. Because remember, Marvels was supposed to come out before Secret Invasion, and Secret Invasion was supposed to come out.
Right, but what I'm saying is, the Marvel spot was supposed to be where Quantumania was, which came out before Secret Invasion.
The timeline I'm looking at right now is in summer 2022. It was February the 17th, 2023, Quantumania. Secret Invasion was supposed to be spring. Guardians was May 5th. July 22nd was Marvels. Quantumania was always supposed to come out first because it was supposed to lead off Phase 5. Blade was supposed to come out this year. Ironheart this year.
Oh, that thing you just read, did it have Secret Invasion before Marvels?
Yes.
Well, then that's still weird. Then that's even weirder if you've seen the Marvels.
But no, but remember, spring and then Marvels was supposed to come out in the summer. Loki and Marvels were supposed to come out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because spoiler alert, for those who have not watched Marvels, and I'm not going to spoil as far as like the movie, watch that movie and then watch Secret Invasion because it makes more sense. Yes, thank you. Kay, if Nick Fury was a different man in Secret Invasion, and if it came out before Marvel's behavior makes more sense. And David Cooper, I do understand what you're saying. You can't blame COVID for the mess that was DS3. What was that? The unevenness of T and
David Cooper. I don't know. I need you to write these things out. I don't know what you're saying.
I don't know what DS3 is.
DS3 and TL&T. Let us know what those are.
Yeah.
I feel like your brain is fixated on what David Cooper wrote, trying to figure out what those are.
It really is. But anyway,
me too.
But if you're going to tell that type of story, you better make sure that shit is in order. And I think that's the biggest problem that Phase 4 and Phase 5 had, is that none of that. Thor: Love and Thunder, thank you, Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange 3. All right.
So David Cooper brings up a very interesting point. COVID, isn't the only reason why Doctor Strange and Thor: Love and Thunder weren't that great. Because let's be honest, Thor Ragnarok was here.
Mm-hmm.
Thor: Love and Thunder was down here. I liked it, but that doesn't mean it was good.
We said, "Hey, man, Taika, you did a good job. We're not going to give you any notes. Do whatever you want." And maybe that
Boom.
wasn't what should have happened. Maybe he should have just had one person. We've talked about this with your boy Hideo Kojima. It's like, you know what? Sometimes you need an editor. It doesn't hurt.
Yep.
You just need one person to be like, "Nah, let's take a beat."
Here's another thing that I want to bring up that I think a lot of people are not also accounting for why there are problems with Marvel now. Because and I want to say this without people getting upset. It's very hard to duplicate something when you have lucked up on certain things. So the MCU worked because we'd never seen it before.
Mhm.
So we had never, you know what? Let me back up. Who right now is the best quarterback in the NFL, in your opinion? Who would you say?
Oh God, I'm not the person to ask. You better ask Chat. I don't know. I don't keep up enough.
Reason why I
All
asked
I
that is
know is it ain't
because
Bryce Young.
it ain't Bryce Young.
I
Would you
know that.
say a lot of people say the most talented quarterback that we have seen and is the best quarterback in the league right now is Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Patrick Mahomes has had excellent years,
Hmm.
gangbusters. Patrick Mahomes was not lauded as the person who was going to be this great quarterback, correct?
Sure.
There were
Yeah.
a lot of other people, that even you who doesn't watch football was like, that's not the guy that I heard was going to be the next big thing.
Hmm.
But he turned out to be the best quarterback in the league, right? Patrick Mahomes is not having a Patrick Mahomes level year. He is now victim to his own success. That is the MCU.
Hmm.
The MCU came out and was not supposed to be this good. It was not supposed to be what it is today. They lucked up because they actually hired the right people, came out at the right time. No one was doing what they were doing. And they used, don't get mad, C-level characters. The Avengers were never Marvel's cash cow when it comes to comics. They were never the marquee characters. Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, although considered the big three for the Avengers, were never sellers as comics. The only reason why Marvel and Disney owned those characters because they sold for shit. So when Marvel sold all the rights to their characters, movie rights, who did they sell? The X-Men, Fantastic Four, Hulk, and Spider-Man. Those four franchises were
And
sold off.
and Blade and some of the Night People, right?
Blade was still under Marvel because it was still under Avi Arad. Um, so again, another C-level character. Blade wasn't making any, wasn't knocking down any doors comics wise.
Sure.
So they were able to capture lightning in a bottle. And they were able to build on that because Kevin Feige saw, as he worked with Fox, how these movies didn't work for them. So when they made the MCU and they built up on these storylines, they cherry picked different storylines for what they had access to. And that's how we got the MCU. People are now upset because we're now bringing in women, minorities into the fold. Marvel and DC have had some issues with promoting different people, BIPOC, as people would say, but they have always had those characters front and center.
Hmm.
The Avengers were, Kay said it, Marvel invested time to turn C-level into A-levels. And you want to know how much time they invested in a C-level character to go up against an A-level character? Batman versus Superman moved off its movie date because the third Captain America movie was on the same day.
Hmm.
There is no way Captain America was a bigger name than Batman and Superman. But DC even said, we need to get up the fuck up out of this damn date before we get embarrassed.
Mhm.
That's how much time Marvel invested in building these characters up. And let's be honest, they fit a certain demographic at the time. So now, if you started off with most of your movies being helmed by straight white guys, and that franchise took off, and then you see people coming into it, and it's like, wait a minute, why are we not? What happened to all these other characters? Why? Well, in order to tell a broader story, you need to bring in more people. And now that Robert Downey Jr., Chris Pine, Chris Hemsworth all have other aspirations, they're not going to want to do all
Chris
of
Evans.
this. Chris Evans. I said Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Who they need to reach out to.
Who would you want him to be?
But well, we'll get to that later.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a character in mind for him. Yeah, you have those characters. You have to branch out, because what was the thing that we heard from Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista on Guardians 3? I'll be glad when I got to do this shit anymore.
Sure, wearing all that makeup and prosthetics and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is a grind. It is hard. I don't want to take anything away from those people. They do a very hard job to be on all the time.
Mhm.
So when you start including people who are not normally the people you recognize, you're going to have some backlash. And politically, it is beneficial to some people. There are channels who make money on ripping Marvel,
Sure.
ripping people of color, ripping anything that's different. And they have made a dent in this fight.
Sure.
So
For me, though, even with that, I don't have an issue with who you bring in. I just have an issue with how the story's told. Because I think we talked about this before. It shouldn't have taken that long for Scarlet Johansson to get a Black Widow movie.
Agreed.
And then
there's no way Captain Marvel should have came out before Scarlet Witch. Black Widow.
Right. And on top of that, okay, if you compare, it seems like more service and honor was paid to Black Widow in the Hawkeye series than in the movie.
Yes.
Which you could argue maybe that's a tone thing because she hadn't died yet or whatever, but it just seemed like there was more closure and wraparound in Hawkeye than like Endgame. Because Tony got his moment. Black Widow, maybe for reasons, I don't know, but she didn't really get her moment, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Kay, you bring up a good point. That's why, remember, they were review bombing these movies. Captain Marvel was getting review bombed back in the day. They had to change the way Rotten Tomatoes worked. Another thing that I think a lot of people are not counting on, and I think it's one of those things that we have to keep in mind, and this goes back to my original point. Marvel is the cool people in the room. And the people who were cool before are not cool anymore. They're still getting their stuff done, but ain't nobody beating down the door to talk to them. It's all about Marvel. It's all about these superhero movies. And you know who they are. Quentin Tarantino. Martin Scorsese.
I'm laughing at Zayla Maru. Jennifer Lawrence got a Black Widow movie before Black Widow. Yeah. Was it
Red Sparrow?
Red
Sparrow. Yep. She's right.
People in the chat,
I like Marvel.
Talking about the Marvels. We really enjoyed the Marvels. Be sure to check out our review.
Here's the thing. Marvels has an audience score of almost 90%, has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. Here's the thing. If you go look at their score, Marvel's score has an 83% audience score, 62% tomato score, right? Secret Invasion has a 53% and a 47% auto, but you ain't hear nobody bashing that. And it's just, in my opinion, people are bashing it because it makes certain people feel good to tear down. And Stephen King said it best. Ooh, girls, yucky. And then two, and he brought up a very good point. I don't know why people are raving to see a franchise fail. And it's like, we as nerds never thought we would get to see this. So why wanting it to be torn down. But I want to go back to Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, all these other people who are ridiculing and condemning Marvel movies. The problem is that they're no longer the darlings at these awards. Like, they were always the people. They were the cool kids. And now all the attention is being paid to these other people.
Mhm.
Quentin Tarantino's not, his movies aren't not get, they're not, it's not like they're not getting made. Scorsese has a film right now, Killers
Killers of the
of
Flower Moon.
Flower Moon. Anybody stop him from making that? Anybody? Like, he has the most expensive movie made on Netflix.
Mhm.
Like, there's the problem with these people, and that's why I think Marvel is taking hits from multiple sides. Don't get me wrong, they are not at the top of their game right now. I'll be the first to say it, but it's not as if they made Flash.
You really hate the Flash movie.
I really dislike that movie.
Did you haven't gotten a Blue Beetle yet, right?
I have watched that.
You did? Okay.
I actually
cool.
like Blue Beetle.
Okay.
I actually like Blue Beetle. I think that the Blue Beetle's a better movie than Flash.
Interesting.
Blue Beetle's a better movie than Black Adam.
I see no lies there. I'm fine with that.
And I think the biggest problem is that Marvel is taking hits from all sides. So you're not at the top of your game. You had to get through COVID, a regime change. Your movies ain't coming out on time. On top of, let's not act like the elephant in the room isn't the biggest news in Marvel right now. Is the VX people are upset because they're being worked to death. Jonathan Majors is going to trial.
That was a rough movie to look at.
Jonathan Majors may go to jail and is going on trial for abuse.
When is that trial supposed to happen? Because they said November. Like, November's almost over, so I guess it's next week.
Probably next year. I'm quite sure we're going to hear it's got pushed back to next year because he tried to get the case dismissed.
Right.
But so your Thanos level person is going to be on trial for domestic violence. Mm-hmm. Oh, and the person he was dating, who he was accused of beating, also worked for you. So you have all of these different things on top of, you've got a political fight with the state of Florida.
Hey, Breck, just want to say hey to Breck. He said he'd pop in for a second.
Yep. You have a political fight on your hand in Florida. You also have a problem with your streaming service, and you've produced too much content that people can't keep up with. And you have Variety releasing articles a week before your last movie comes out. Oh, and you can't even have them promote the film because what happened this summer? The strike. So the perfect storm for Marvel happened in the beginning. And at the end of this, in phase 4 and 5, another perfect storm happened. So I think that's where they are right now. You have those things going on, and that it's a hard thing to overcome when you can't promote your film, when you can't have Brie Larson out there talking about your film, Iman Vellani out there, Tiana Paris, Samuel L. Jackson on. Imagine if Iman had been able to host Saturday Night Live.
Sure.
Before this movie came out. Imagine if Brie Larson was able to host Saturday Night Live. Not only would it have been a huge thing because another woman got to host Saturday Night Live, I believe it might be one of the first Indian actors or actresses to host Saturday Night Live. I mean, that to me, Kevin from Chicago brings a very good point. The first week of the strike, Bob Iger was at $1 billion retreat talking shit. And that's what makes me wonder the timing of that article.
So put on your tinfoil hat. You've been telling me this for a while. Now you got your stage. What is your theory on this article?
I think that there are still remnants between the Bob Iger and Bob Chapek fight that are going on right now. Mm-hmm. And now that Bob Iger has taken over, it's now going to fall to Bob Iger that anything that goes wrong, it's on you, bud. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if some of those same people who were in that fight between Chapek and Iger are some of the sources for that article. Case says the trial
November
is set
29th.
for November 20th. That's Monday.
No, that's Wednesday.
Yep. Wednesday?
Yeah.
Oh, so Monday is the 28th. Okay.
No. Monday's the 27th.
Oh,
Your days are
I
off,
got
man.
kids, man. Kids are
Yes.
sick. My days is off. I don't know what day it is.
Okay.
My wife was
Because
like,
the 28th is the Murdaugh trial sentencing.
a name I hope I never hear again. I think that article was released to hurt the regime that's in place right now.
Interesting.
And because when you read it,
So
why
you
would
feel
you
like
release that article?
somebody from Variety was friends with Chapin and said, "I got your back, bro. Let me drop this."
I think because think about it, like why would you release that a week? Why would you release that the week Loki ends and the week before Marvels comes out? Why would you let out that you're going to recast and bring back the original Avengers a week before your movie comes out that is already getting lambasted by certain people in YouTube spaces? People, it's the first Marvel movie directed by a black woman. It helmed by three women. I mean, it was, to me, the timing was too. I don't believe in coincidences,
Okay.
and to me, that article was not a coincidence. It was done to me with malicious intent. Crisis, because here's the thing: the article was dropped. I'm trying to find the exact date. I put it in the chat.
Just you living life. Yeah, going back to that comment about Mahershala Ali almost leaving Blade and Shang-Chi director leaving King Dynasty. Those are two things that are listed in the Variety article as well.
After this article came out, you saw what happened to Daredevil Born Again. They let that whole team go.
So I'm excited
Um,
about the idea of them taking more time with that, and because I don't know if the Variety piece talked about this. I think I might have said this on Polygon,
it
but
didn't.
the
It didn't
way
because it hadn't
they
happened yet.
right, no, the thing I was talking about is there was kind of a system in place for Marvel TV shows where people would look at a pilot and be like, "This is good," but we don't necessarily know how the rest of the show is going to go. And it seems like, oh, that's why a lot of these Marvel shows start strong and then the ending's kind of whatever because they didn't necessarily have the whole thing figured out before they started. But it seems like maybe they're going back to an idea of no, let's have a real showrunner and a show and a writer's room and figure out what we want to do, which hopefully means good things for Daredevil. So I'm excited.
So it's one of those things where I wonder how 16-7. Come on, beat these chickens. Um, I, I I believe that this article was done at a way to get in a way to get not necessarily your name out there, but your article out there, because like Kay just said, you dropped it in the middle of a window, which basically looks like it shits on Loki and the Marvels. Two things your company needs going forward, because you've got to recoup that money. You've already spent the money to get the thing made.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you give information to an article or a reporter that's going to hurt you making money?
Mm-hmm.
Because the more people that you have not going to watch this movie means the more money you're going to lose, which is then going to feed into the idea that there is superhero fatigue, which then feeds into the novelty or the idea from other people saying, see, we told you. And then it feeds into the idea nobody wants to see these movies. Nobody wants to see women on the screen. Who does that sound like? Ike Perlmutter.
Mm-hmm.
And whose name got brought up again this past week on the campaign trail? By the person who's out there at halftime during the Gamecock Clemson game.
Are you talking about Ike?
He said, bring Ike back. When Ike ran Marvel and fine.
Interesting.
Yep. So, and he's one of the main reasons why Black Widow never got made. He's the reason why the merchandise got shelved. So you have internal forces that have been documented that have been detrimental to Marvel since its inception. It's just a matter of can Kevin Feige and Iger, or whoever Iger puts in place, turn the ship around. David Cooper brings up a good point, and Nia has kind of stayed out of it. You know, the reshoots. There has been reports saying the movie's not bad, but that's not my movie. That's a Kevin Feige movie, and I like the movie, but there are some
Mhm.
problems with the movie as far as storytelling. There are some beats that don't make any sense. Um, but you can't watch Candyman and then be like, she can't direct because of Marvels because it didn't make any money. That means you're just hating for hating's sake.
Sure.
And that's one of those things that I think we have to remember. Who is the information coming from and why are they get, because that's something you talk about all the time when you talk about being a journalist. Why is this person talking to me?
What's their bias? What did they get out of
Boom.
it? Uh,
Uh-huh.
so I don't know if you saw the tweet I put up. Probably not because you're not on Twitter anymore or X, whatever you want to call it. But I used the meme pic of the dog with the house on fire, and then I plastered Marvel Studios logo over the dog, saying everything's fine.
Mhm.
So I say all that to say, is Marvel Studios on fire? Is there something that needs to be fixed? What do you recommend?
So I think part of the problem is that Marvel's big problem is that they have not they because they don't have, here's their biggest problem, and it's a problem that DC doesn't have, but DC doesn't have good stuff.
Okay.
DC has fandom, and Marvel doesn't have its own event that is just Marvel. That they go to these different conventions, they go to Hall H. It's a big deal when they go to Hall H, and that's fine. Here's the thing: Marvel needs to design people. And here's the thing, Ken from Chicago, I'll back up your point. Not only did they love Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Verse was great. Two of the best movies of the year were comic book movies. Um, I think they have not had a unified message in explaining what this phase is. And I think they need to. But here's the other thing: it's kind of hard to explain what the phase is when your villain is on trial for domestic violence.
Hmm.
You can't say Kang is going to be, because Kang is Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors cemented himself as Kang in Quantumania because he was the best thing in that movie, next to Michelle Pfeiffer.
Hmm.
I want to see whatever high yellow baby they got in the multiverse, because that's a Kang. Because you can't tell me they didn't bone.
You can't tell me they didn't bone. Somebody clip that out somewhere. Let's put that out.
And here's another thing, going back to your point. Why was Bill Murray in that movie? Because you can't tell me that Michelle Pfeiffer and Bill Murray did it. I won't believe that.
Somebody said, "Hey, let's get Bill Murray in." So they put him
And
in.
that was, and again, that was a waste. Um, just uh, just you. So there are reports that they're trying to pivot to Doctor Doom. There are reports that they're, with the Fantastic Four movie, they may be pivoting. They may slow down. Um,
Do you think that's a good plan?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know,
Okay.
because how many movies do you have to build up? Because Doom is a bigger threat to me than Thanos is.
You say that.
Um, in my opinion. But I think two things: you don't have a villain, so you don't have anything to build up to, and you have all these loose threads going on. Because I think what they're building up to is, because they've been doing this. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's Secret Wars. Most of the MCU has been cherry picking a lot of Jonathan Hickman's run, and Jonathan Hickman did Secret Wars, the latest iteration of Secret Wars. I also think the way that they have been setting up these different heroes, they're setting up what's called Avengers World. And if you remember at the end of Doctor Strange 2, they talked about incursions. All the incursions leads to there being one universe being run by Doom.
Hmm.
Um, Doom, basically, Battle World, yes. Um, I think that's what they're setting up for. The problem is they haven't explained it. And this is where Marvel and DC have done a piss poor job. If you go back and source the comics in every one of these movies and say, this movie came from this, and if you want to see the story continue, go pick up this book.
Mhm.
They have not done that. They have done a terrible job of that, because what you're doing is it's a symbiotic relationship. You're building new viewers and building new readers. Um, Kim, we can get to Kang versus Thanos and Doom. I think Doom is a bigger threat because of all the things he's done in the past and what he's done recently. Um, Doom is a bigger threat because Doom can be both hero and villain, whereas Thanos has only been villain. In other words, you know what you're getting from Thanos. It's harder to predict for somebody when you don't know if that person's going to be on your side or switch sides on you. When that
Mhm.
person's only perfect example, Loki. That's why Loki was such a good villain, because there were times Loki was with you, and then there were times Loki wasn't with you. And Loki season 2 does a very good job of going through the machinations of what a person like that deals with. Um, but going back to the comics, I think Marvel is in good shape to bring it all home and bring it together if they do a number of things. One, get your own event. I know that is hard. I know it's not easy to pull off. Get your own event. Get your own whatever fandom is. Do your own event. That is comics, movies, video games, television, action figures. You got Hasbro. Get your animation division together. Bring in your writers, your artists. Have your own event. Two, start tying the comics and the movies together. Start in educating your viewership that they have to read the comics to better educate themselves. Because here's the thing, there are franchises that do that. There are franchises that has an entire fan base that doesn't just dip in and out. They're called Star Wars fans. And they're having a reckoning now because they can't get their act together. But you can't tell me that those Star Wars fans ain't reading every bit of Star Wars shit that's out there,
Mhm.
buying the games, the movies. Moviegoers hate homework, but here's the thing, moviegoers and people like stuff. And if you and because here's the thing, Kay brings up a very good point. They have started to do that. And if you start educating your viewing public to be readers as well, you start to have an educated viewership. And that's something I think Marvel has not done a good job of. Um, I think that's what they need to start doing, and that's when you have these events. Because here's the thing: you brought it up, and a lot of people don't think about that. You said yourself you didn't know who Thanos was, but you knew he was a big deal. How did you find out that Thanos was a big deal?
I said that.
Yep.
When?
In this video, you talked about I didn't know that what Thanos was, but I knew they were building to something. And you've said in the past you knew that
If I
Thanos.
said
You
that,
didn't.
then I missed. I spoke because I knew who Thanos was because a cousin of mine made me read the Infinity Gauntlet series years ago.
That's my
Um,
that's my point.
right,
You
but
are,
what I'm saying is, I think what I meant to say is people who have saw it may have been like, I don't know who Thanos is, but they know he's coming.
but here's the thing: you didn't know exactly who Thanos was, but you read a comic that
Sure.
informed you when the movie came out. You were like, oh, that's what Marvel needs to start doing.
Hmm.
They need to start having evangelists for their films who have read the source material, because now it's a battle of hearts and minds.
Leroy, you're the evangelist.
I am, but I'm just one. I need more. So that's my point. They need more people like that, because now it's a double-edged sword. Because when you have evangelists, then you have fandom, and then you have crazy people,
Hmm.
moderately crazy. But you need those people because those people help move the needle to get people into the seats. Right now, you have a problem, an evangelist problem. You have a loud minority railing against these movies, which is keeping people from going to the movies. Um, Kim from Chicago, I think you're missing. I disagree. Here's the problem: the only reason why you have these films is because of the comics. And the reason why these films became popular is one, they were good, but you had so many fans got to see their favorite characters on screen, which then helped push people, the word of mouth, social media. That matters. We have literally seen social media and people who have railed against something who have never seen it. If you look at, we've all been in those rooms, those groups of people who have not seen the film, who are trashing the film. And then when you call them out and they're like, oh, I hadn't seen it. So what are you raving about? You have to then have enough people to combat those people. Every time I turn around, I'm seeing a black girl dress up as Monica Rambeau because it matters. The problem is those people who are dressing up in those costumes who are cosplaying, they need to have their voices heard, and we need to get them more ammunition on their side to help push people to the theater to see the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you're going to do that is if more people really read. But here's the thing. I didn't hate Iron Man. I disagree with that. I didn't hate Iron Man. And here's where I disagree with that. People can argue over not whether or not the character's motivation in the comics, but when you see it on screen, you're going to get the people who enjoy the comics to enjoy the movies. And that's where I think the biggest problem that Marvel has is that they don't have people who I literally had I was in a group one day, and this was, I normally don't join into this, but I saw a couple of my friends talking about Marvels, and this dude was like, they need to go back to the movies or the characters that sold. And they were talking about Captain America, Iron Man. And we as comic fans were like, we can tell you're not a comic fan because you're talking about C-level characters and Captain Marvel. And I was like, bro, your entire Avengers is C-level. Blade was a D-level character. Ain't nobody was checking for Blade comics. But look what Blade did. So I think that has a lot to do with it, in my honest opinion, my humble opinion. I think those are the two things that has to be. The messaging has to be there, as well as fixing the movies and telling a good story. Where do you think they need to go? Because I've talked enough.
Oh, mine is much simpler. Cut down on the content that you're putting out. I don't need.
I agree.
I'm excited that we're only getting one Marvel movie next year. It's not even MCU.
What movie is it?
It's I guess it's MCU now, but it's Deadpool 3. As the schedule stands now, we're only getting one Marvel movie next year, and it's Deadpool 3. I think that's good. I think slow it down, figure out what stories you want to tell, make sure you have a strong ending for your movie, and go from there. I'm good with that. I don't know what quality over quantity. Yeah, I don't know what TV shows they have next year. I think Agatha might be next year.
Agatha's one.
What If will start this year, but it'll finish next year. And then I don't know what else, because I don't know when Ironheart's supposed to come out. I don't know when they got pushed back.
Ironheart. So you still have on the books, you have Ironheart, Armor Wars, Captain America, Agatha, Thunderbolts, Daredevil. Those are things that we know are still on the books that are supposed to be coming out fairly soon. Echo is done and comes out next year.
Oh, Echo's January. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that. That trailer looks awesome.
Yeah, What If? I'm looking forward to What If only because I like the idea of seeing what happens next. Because I thought the Doctor Strange episode was one of the best. I did like Black Panther, but I thought the Doctor Strange, just the idea that him learning that this is a fixed point in the timeline that you can't change, and him turning himself into a monster just to learn. He turned into a villain.
You were talking about Chris Pine. Is that something you want to get into on this video, or that's a different topic?
That's a different video. But I think Chris Pine is an excellent actor. He does a lot of blockbuster stuff. But if you go back and look at the stuff he's done with Tyler Sheridan, Hell or High Water, The Contractor. If you look at some of that stuff, I think he has the acting chops to pull off a couple of characters that I
Okay.
would like to see him play. But that's maybe we do a video of actors we would like to see in. But I think he's one big name I would like to see. But there's a lot of them that I'm like, why'd you bring him in here? Because, like you said, is Charlize Theron going to be able to show up for all these Marvel events?
Right.
I mean, she's a fine actress. She can take the hits, but does she have the time to devote to this type of franchise? Because it is time consuming. Harry Styles, the man can sing and dance, and when you want to be out there singing and making music, you may have to do a press junket for whatever movie you're going to be in. Um, Thornton brings up a very good point. I want to read this one right here. As a book reader that we saw many books turned into movies for decades, I come to expect differences in print and video. Differences in comic movies do not bother me as much. And I think if you educate your viewing audience to understand that this is where the source material came from, and here's a reimagining on screen, I think you do a very good job of educating and having people who want to see your stuff. Perfect example is why we saw all this YA stuff on television. Um, um, I think that goes a long way. But Herbert Thornton brings up a very good point. Is the comic book cinema age over? Um, this is always a niche market that just happened to go mainstream with box office success. It's a cycle. And I think that's what people don't understand. This is just a genre to tell these stories. Um, I always go back to this. Anybody remember when musicals were coming out every week or every month in the movie theaters or westerns? It's a cycle. I think these movies are here to stay because we've established that they can make money. Same thing with horror movies. They can make money. I think they're going to be a subsection that you're never going to get rid of. They're always going to be here. Now, how big or how small they are depends on the appetite of the viewing audience, if the shows or if the movies are good. But we still see musicals every now and then, but they're not as popular as they were back in the day when Singing in the Rain was a big deal or when Shane was a big deal. Um, I think that goes back to that
Did you
whole
say
idea
Shane?
of Shane, Shane, Shane.
Shane. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it was a Western back in the day.
Okay,
I take it you've never seen that.
I have not.
Uh, Hold on, I'm gonna put in the IMDb for those of you who have not seen this or heard of this movie.
1953. Okay.
Yep. Go look it up, people. So yeah, so I think the biggest problem with this is that you have so many people who are film nerds talking about this isn't cinema. And so you don't have that same fight to the degree to Fast and Furious movies or Expendables.
Mm-hmm.
So why is superhero movies that big thing that has a target on their back? Because they're the biggest game in town. When you're the biggest game in town, you get a target on your back. The Star Wars had to deal with the same thing. So I think that's where you're going right now. So that's just how I feel when it comes to those kind of things.
Okay.
Um,
We've been going an hour.
yeah. Ken, I understand where Ken is coming from. I just fundamentally disagree that you can't have people who read the comics and then watch the movies and can divorce themselves and say, I enjoy the comics. Those comics are separate. I think that you can have, I think the nerds are going to be there to help build up that. What's the word I'm looking for? that hype,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest of the people follow afterwards. I think the people who are like women, this thing about women in movies and all that other stuff, I think is the biggest crock of shit because let's be honest, the biggest movie of the year was Barbie. It's like, I disagree that I say it's not necessarily a requirement. I think reading in general will help you educate your viewing audience. And I think making more comic readers is a big deal and helps the comic industry, which is something that Marvel has not done a good job of doing. You've brought in all of these people who are fans of the movies. Meanwhile, the movies would not have gotten made without comics. Bring some of those fans into the comics. And then you have built in a subscriber base who's going to help push this along because we would have never gotten here if we didn't have the comics. And I think that's where a lot of people don't understand why those of us who read the comics are so mad with Marvel by not putting the comics, pushing people to go read the comics. Yeah, they push the toys, they push the action figures, push the comics. There's no reason why I walk into a Target or a Walmart and there are action figures, there are video games, and there are not comics in your mainstay stores. There is not a spinner rack somewhere. And that's the problem. Because if you're not getting these people to read the comics, then you're killing yourself because there is going to be a time when these movies, like Herbert Thornton says, this cycle starts to dwindle. And what's going to sustain you is these comic fans when the next time you restart this franchise. And if you don't have enough of them, so that's just where I am. The Everyday Show. Hey, appreciate if you're new, we appreciate you coming in. Want to highlight everybody who came into the chat. Kim from Chicago, David Brooks, or David Cooper. I said David Brooks. That's a writer. Kay, Herbert Thornton. Who else am I missing? Zaylin, Baby Toshiro. Michael IMAX. Even though IMAX was a Gamecock fan, I did not appreciate that. Let's go look at that score right now.
Wendy was in there. She chatted at the beginning.
She was promoting the Gamecocks. I can't allow that.
What got you through the week, man? We've been talking for a minute.
Loki, man. I finally got to finish Loki, and I started Monarch. I really enjoyed Loki. I think Loki was what some of these shows should shoot to be. I think that was about 6 episodes, very small. I really enjoyed from beginning to end. I thought the ending was amazing. The VX people made their money on that move. Like they pulled it off. I thought that was really good. My only problem was Jonathan Majors, the timely character, the stuttering. That was it. I thought the Monarch show is turning out to be something different. I'm really enjoying it, but then again, I'm a god. I like this Godzilla universe. I wonder if the HBO Max releasing everything I wonder if Warner Brothers F themselves out of that franchise by releasing everything on HBO Max, because remember that was a Legendary property, and Legendary worked with HBO Max and Warner Brothers, and it's suspiciously not on there. And I wonder if they shot themselves in the foot by not having that property on their subscription service.
Okay.
What about you?
No game. Oh, couple games. I don't know if I talked about this before. Thirsty Suitors. It is free on Game Pass if you have a Game Pass subscription, but maybe it's $15 if it's not. It's a very interesting game where you play as a Indian Sri Lankan 20-year-old who goes back to her town to make up with her exes and all the drama that she caused. Very fun game. Just talking about dealing with drama in your life and how you kind of recoup from that. A lot of fun. Another game called Vinba, which is a story of a little kid who grew up and you kind of cook dishes. Uh, Interesting story. Very an indie game. Movie or TV show wise, For All Mankind is season 4 started on Apple TV.
Yeah.
If you're not watching For All Mankind, that's a really good science fiction show. Um, watch something on Netflix called Kunk on Earth.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
I've seen parts of it. I hadn't finished it yet. I started it. I haven't
It
finished
is.
it.
It's like a fake documentarian talking about the history of the world.
It
Um,
is hilarious.
it's very
Her dry humor.
yes.
Oh,
It's definitely a dry humor thing. If you're
mhm.
you got to be into that. If you're not, you won't like. But if that is your thing, it is great. The way it is written
It
is
is.
so
It is.
funny.
It is. It is the best way to describe British comedy. That distilled, dry
Yeah,
comedy.
and
Yes.
everything in history gets both barrels. They go after everybody, all
Oh, I
religions,
mean,
every country is like, oh, this is great. So it's not
I'm
just
gonna be
picking
honest with
one
you.
group.
I love when they came after America.
Oh yeah. And what episode are you on?
I'm still in one. No, two.
Oh,
I think I'm on
they
two.
go after America the entire series. It's great.
Oh,
Um,
and Kim from Chicago brings up Invincible season two is
Invincible
really
season has
good.
been good.
Yeah.
What other shows I
Yes, it's final. Fuck them chickens.
there we go. Um, and the last thing, oh, two
Uh,
more things from Netflix. The new Scott Pilgrim anime. It's a lot of fun.
I watched the first 2 episodes. I hadn't finished it.
No spoilers, but things get wild in Scott Pilgrim. Even if you've seen the movie, you should definitely see the anime because it goes some
Yeah.
places. And there was a documentary. People who have been in our chats long enough know that I really love Indian cinema movies. Whether it's an action movie or a romantic comedy from Indian cinema, I really love them. There's like a 4-part
Mhm.
documentary on Netflix done with Yash Raj Studios, which is one of the biggest production houses in India that makes movies every year or hundreds of movies a year.
Mhm.
It's called The Romantics, and it kind of talks about the history of how Bollywood and Indian cinema and why it's such a cultural touchstone within there. Um,
Mhm.
there are a couple of things I wish they had hit on, which they kind of don't. They don't really talk about colorism in Indian cinema movies. How mostly you see a bunch of usually lighter skinned Indian actors as opposed to darker skinned Indian actors being in lead roles.
Mhm.
They don't really touch that, which kind of sucks. They talk about other stuff that's really good. Doctor Who special. I'm probably gonna watch that once I get out of here. I will watch Doctor Who special because that's on Disney Plus.
Trying to decide what I'm going to watch next. I think I'm going to try to finish. I'm going to start at the end of the world
Okay.
um, on Hulu. You watch Hawkeye because it's Christmas, and I really loved Kate Bishop, and
Yeah, she's awesome.
I loved Yelena Belova showed up in the show. I may do that. I've tried to incept my children every chance I get for Spider Verse, so we watched that recently, and I mean that's a given. Like it's Die Hard is it's like breathing. Um, I need to finish. I need to get back into Foundation. I really do. Thank you, Zaylan, for bringing that back up. Because you know you go through a while where you don't watch certain things.
Sure.
So for a while I wasn't open to Apple TV Plus, and when Godzilla came, I was like, oh yeah, I pay for this, and I was like, and then that first episode, man, that ending, ugh, like you knew it was coming, but you were like, I still, oh,
Hmm.
what a way to go, what, I just, if you've seen it, you've seen it. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there, and maybe for the holidays we'll do a video on the best stream. What's the best streaming service out there? Because we haven't done that in a while. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, my opinion has changed.
Okay.
My opinion, as far as pound for pound, the best streaming service.
Well, don't tell them here. They
Uh,
got to watch the video.
well, I'm not. I'm not. It's just, whoo.
Yeah.
'Cause, I got to look at the budget and some things getting cut.
Sure.
So yeah.
What was I going to say? Go ahead.
And David Cooper, thank you for bringing it up. I've been so I wish I had it next to me. So I'm getting back into not just reading comics, but I don't know if you guys remember there was a book called Black Nerd Problems, but I'm getting back into reading all of my old omnibus stuff and going back and reading. So this is Bob Harris. Yeah, Bob Harris and Steve Epting, South Carolina kid, Steve Epting. This is some of the old Avengers stuff. If anybody looks familiar, that's Black Knight, that's Cersei, that's Hercules, that's Black Widow, and that's Crystal. This was the Avengers team back in the day. So I'm going back and reading some of my old comics and just reading books. Michael Harriot's book is one book that I want to. I'm going to get for Christmas. So yeah, I want to get back into reading again.
Cool.
And I've fallen out, and because if I read more, I hopefully that'll like my kids will read more because that's why I started reading. My mom was a real big reader, so I'm always
Folks,
gonna be a champion.
if I don't shut Leroy down, he'll continue to talk.
Yeah, I'm no longer stressed. Chicken's lost, so
There we go. We've been going a minute, just some behind the scenes stuff for you guys. We do plan to be live that Thursday night for the Video Game Awards. That's the plan. We'll see if it works. We'll see if our technology allows us, but we do plan to live stream that. We will also either have a live press play or a tape press play talking about the nominees beforehand. Is the plan. Yeah, I think that's it. You got anything else?
Yeah. So I have not read those books. I know about them. I know the trailer for Netflix's for that show came out. I'm getting there, getting back, like getting that muscle flow into reading books. But I've heard a lot of good things about that series. So yeah, thank you for reminding me. No spoilers, but were you surprised by the games that were nominated? Was anybody left off to tease ahead to the next video? Okay.
I don't think so. This is what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, folks. I'm going to cut us off.
Appreciate it. We appreciate it. Love you. Hey, stay safe, everybody. Go Clemson. Fuck them Gamecocks.
There we go.